pradėsim pirmiausia nuo klausimų jums. Ar ne? Taip vadinamas State of the Union, svarbiausias pranešimas apie Europos Sąjungą, ir mes turim klausimą. Giedrė tada paleis jį. Ir klausimas yra, kas matė Europos komisijos prezidentės pranešimą šiais metais. Ir angliškai užduodu irgi taip pat klausimą mūsų pranešėjui, kuris galbūt jau yra prisijungęs. So the question to start before the keynote is if people saw the State of the Union 2020, and we have several options. Yes, no, I did, but actually the memory is fading fast, or what is the State of the Union? Taip, turime 52%, kurie sako taip. Yes, so we clearly see that at least half of people in the audience actually saw the State of the Union. Others did not, or 1/4 say they did, but memory is fading fast, and well, these 2 weeks, many things already have happened. So probably it's pretty good to have our first keynote on State of the Union, main messages. So if you missed this 1 hour and 10 minutes, now you can probably have a recap and main messages, and also connect that with the preparation to the conference on the future of Europe. And I'd like to invite Richard Kühnel, who is Director for Representation and Communication in the Member States from the Directorate General for Communication. So the floor is yours.
Hi, hello. I hope you can hear me and see me. I'm very pleased to be with you today. I would, of course, have loved to be physically coming to Vilnius, and this had been a plan already a while ago, and I know we had to postpone because of the coronavirus. Still, I would have much preferred to be with you physically and exchange, because then you can also get, you know, the vibrations and the personal relations in our communication. Now, I have watched with a great interest the slide you have just presented with this poll among participants. And I'm now worried if a quarter of you has a memory which is fading fast, then whatever I say now today, you will also, you know, soon forget. And I was a bit surprised because I thought you are a fairly young audience, and memory fading is something more for people of my age and above. But let's hope that I can manage to sort of rub in a few key messages, which I hope will stick for a little longer. But I was pleased that 50% of you have been following the State of the Union speech. We had Europe-wide a very, very good turnout, also in terms of people watching live the speech. We have managed in all our member states that TV stations were broadcasting live, and many people could follow also through social media and the internet the speech. So we had a very high take-up, and I think also in terms of the feedback we received, the speech on the State of the Union went down well. Now, you also asked the question in your poll here, you know, what is the State of the Union? And I'm glad everybody knows what it is. You may know that, of course, the origin of this is coming from the United States of America, where the US president had already established for a long time, and I think it goes back to Roosevelt, this annual State of the Union speech in the US House, in the Congress. In Europe, it has less of a history, but it was now the 10th time, so 10 years of State of the Union. That is something we have learned from the Americans. But if I look at the debate which took place yesterday between the US president and Mr. Biden, I think we, in the meantime, have also moved on in terms of discussion culture. On this side of the Atlantic, I think we are still very much open for a free, frank, but respectful discussion, where we respect the opinions of others. And that is something which I also want to have with you, an open, frank discussion. You give me your opinion, you tell me what you think of not just the speech, but the state of the European Union in which we are in this year, in this difficult year, 2020. And then I'm happy to engage with you. Now, I'm grateful for the organizers. I'm grateful also for our colleagues in the representation, Vilnius, Arnoldas and his team, excellent head of representation. You're really blessed in Lithuania with one of our best teams the Commission has out there. So I'm glad to be with you. And of course, this conference today comes at a very important moment in time. Just recently, we had this State of the Union speech of President von der Leyen. Even more recently, the European Commission has presented its proposals for a migration pact. We will now discuss this week an important issue, the rule of law. Then we have a European Council with an important agenda, which is also still this week. So your conference comes at a critical moment in time. And we should not forget the current context in which we are. We are living through the greatest socio-economic depression as Europe since the Second World War, because of this pandemic, which hits all of us, some more, some less. And I think in Lithuania, you are not among the hardest hits when it comes to lives lost or people ill, or even the economic impact. And of course, in relative terms, that's good, and it has to do with many factors, including geography and measures taken. But let's have no illusion. The time ahead of us is still going to be a time of hardship and anxieties. And it's not just because we're not yet out of the pandemic, and in many countries we are in the middle of a second wave. Sitting here in Brussels, we see how the numbers around us here are going up. But also because many of the effects and after effects of the crisis have not fully hit us yet. So at this moment, our President, Ursula von der Leyen, delivered her speech, and I think it was well received across the EU. And I believe also, and I hope you will confirm that in Lithuania. I saw Arnoldas on your TV immediately afterwards, explaining some of the points the President has made. And many of you among the networks and our partners on the ground have helped to spread the messages of the President. And I really want to thank you on behalf of the Commission for what you have been doing. I would say the speech, my personal impression, was good. I would even say very good. President von der Leyen has hit the right tone at the right moment, and she has touched on, I would say, all the issues which matter to people in Europe, including matters which are important to people in Lithuania. For example, she referred very clearly to the situation in Belarus and on our relations with Russia. She gave a very powerful message. The people of Belarus must be free to decide their own future for themselves. They're not pieces on somebody else's chessboard. I think that says a lot about how we, the European Union, sees the world and global and international relations. People should be free to make their choices. We don't want to play these sort of power games, who is in my backyard and who is in another one's backyard. It's about the people themselves who have to make a choice. And then we have to respect the choice. And our president, I think, has also been very clear in criticizing the Lukashenko regime in very strong words. Now, Soteo, of course, is a speech, but it's more than just a speech. Our president, as many politicians, deliver many speeches, but this State of the Union speech is a very special one because it charts also institutionally a way forward for the Commission's and the European Union's priorities for the months and years ahead. And therefore, I think what was important is that in her speech, President von der Leyen delivered a clear message that from this crisis we are in, the pandemic, economic, social, political crisis even, Europe is not only bouncing back, we will bounce forward. So not back to the past, to where we've been, but we want to bounce back in a way that we move forward into the new and uncharted territories of the 21st century, which means that we want to also use the crisis and our response to it to speed up the digital transformation, the green revolution, and make us a more resilient economy and society which leaves nobody behind. Now, also from the communication point of view, the State of the Union is not just a one-off speech of the President in the European Parliament. It has become, as our President herself has said, a true moment for Europe. It's a European moment. And now, of course, the speech is a very personal handwriting of the President, and she herself has worked many, many days and weeks on the wording and every detail. But of course, she is not alone in this exercise. And it was many weeks, and I would even say months of preparation by many colleagues. Many brains have been thinking hard, many hands have been very helpful to make the speech such a success as it was when it comes to the creation, to teasing about the speech, to creating the right setup and environment, to make sure that TV stations, as I said before, are also broadcasting it, and then to deliver it and eventually to disseminate and explain the messages, which is something where many of you have played, as I said, a very helpful role. Now, let's spend a moment on the reinforced policy drive in the President's speech in these fragile times of ours. What the President said is that we Europeans, and we should never forget that, and I think we should also be proud about that, we have shown our endurance and the strength of the human spirit, which is very much alive in us. Yes, the pandemic has exposed the fragility of our world and our place in it, and also the fragility of the community of values in which we are in. But she said, people want to move out of this corona world, out of fragility, out of uncertainty. They are ready for change and they are ready to move on. And this is why it is a moment for Europe. Now, going from fragility to a new vitality, I think that is one of the key sound bites of the speech. And you brought this message across in many of your post-Soteo actions. It's about this new vitality, which drives the next generation EU. And somebody has sent me this picture of what you have been already charting on a wall in your room. And I've seen Next Generation EU being very prominent in that. And I'm grateful because through Next Generation EU, we can make a change. We can make transformation by design. We can make the transformation the way we want it, the way we chart it. Not change by disaster or destruction or dictate, but change by design. And that's the vision which the European Commission and the European Union as a whole will be working on in the coming months and years. And it will require from all of us also a lot of communication work, because we need our citizens behind this agenda. Change means that our daily lives will change. And if our people are not ready for that, then of course this change will not happen, or it will only happen under very difficult circumstances. So we need to convince our population, our citizens, about the necessity of change, so that we're not just, as I said before, and as the President said, that we're not just bouncing back to what the world looked like. The world will never look again like it looked in 2019. We are entering a new world, but we want to bounce forward and change the way ahead and make the world a better place by design. Now, to make this happen, of course, you also need to listen to people's needs. You need to explain the proposals, and you need to repeat again and again why we cannot go back to old habits. And we have to reassure people that nobody will be left behind, which is not easy, because we all know that, of course, for example, the green transition or the digital transition will be more easy for some than for others. Now, this can only therefore happen if we build trust. People trusting each other, but trusting also in the institutions, including particularly for us in the European institutions. The change is achievable, but of course we need people to walk the walk with us. Now, with our representations in the member states, with our networks, the Europe Direct networks, and many of the networks and colleagues around today here in Vilnius, I think we can make the messages get across and sustain the momentum of Soteo. So even if people have short memories, that they remember this message of we want change by design because we choose it, and we do it for the next generation EU. Now, there are 3 steps also for our communication, which we need to consider when going out and talking about what we are planning. The first one is that we continue, of course, to protect lives. That's the most immediate concern to everybody. My health, my family's health, our lives, our parents and grandparents' lives. The pandemic is with us, and it will stay still for a while with us. Now, in member states, we see that there are tendencies which are quite worrying. Spain, France, the numbers have gone up a lot, also in countries like Czechia or my home country, Austria. By the way, also Philips, who will speak after me. Now, the number of hospitalizations and even fatalities are on the rise in some and many of our member states. But this is why we need to tell people that Europe is not helpless. We are there, Europe is there to care and protect people. We are there to assist our member states to save lives and to improve the health situation and the situation of our health systems. We have been doing that before, and we continue to do it. And the way to do it is not by closing borders or applying a nationalistic solution to health policy, because we cannot beat the virus as Lithuania alone, or Austria alone, or even Germany, or as we can see, the United States alone. It requires big efforts, global efforts, and that is where Europe is driving the global efforts to fight the disease and to find a vaccination. Now, we also need in Europe to build a stronger European Health Union. And she also said that this is a subject for the Conference on the Future of Europe, a discussion which we are about to launch very soon about the future of the European Union, where we have to also look at health competencies. Is it right the way it is and it was, or do we need a more European way of handling matters in these days? Now, there is and remains a health urgency with us, but we have created many stories, many instruments to also deal with the effects of the health crisis, including on unemployment. We have created SURE, which is supporting short-term work and therefore fighting unemployment in many member states. And we have created this huge next generation EU plan for recovery, where we will create millions of jobs, income, we will support companies, particularly small and medium-sized companies, and I'm sure that Lithuania will also profit a lot from this instrument. The president said, never before has Europe come together in this way. It's time to take that spirit and use it to move forward on other issues together. And there, a second message of Soteo is stability. We are stronger than before if our European model of social market economy gives us the tools for it. And this is a story which we have to underline also with concrete examples how the EU has an impact on everyday on people's everyday lives. How our EU budget, how our funds, our rules, the euro, the Schengen area, how this contributes to help us address the pandemic and overcome it and become a stronger union. So there are stories of real EU solidarity and action, and I want you to also help us identify these stories, concrete stories. As you have seen the president referring to these two Italian girls who in the middle of the crisis kept playing tennis on the rooftop because that was the only place where they could play. And that is a symbol how even in a crisis you can continue your life and find the right ways forward. The third message is a message of opportunity. And of course, for many of us still stuck very much in the crisis, they don't think yet of the day after tomorrow. But there is the day after tomorrow. And it is today that we have to think about how we make the Europe after the pandemic a strong Europe, given the global situation and competition with rising powers like China and India. And therefore, we also have to address the big green transformation and digital transformation in a proactive way, which means we want, at the end of this process, after coming through the pandemic, to be a green leader, not just for us in Europe, but for the world, and to make the digital transformation a success story. In many areas, we are still behind, true, but in some areas, we have a lot of unused potential, like using industrial data or now investing into supercomputing in Europe. Social media platforms are popping up. New, startup companies are booming across Europe. So this digital decade, which we are starting, will help Europe to be on top of the list and not a follow-up when it comes to digital transformation. And finally, we need to be a geopolitical player. You are very close geographically to Russia, to Belarus, to Ukraine. You know what I'm talking about. The EU needs to be a credible and strong actor. We are not just the biggest market in the world, which of course gives us an extremely strong power economically. We also are a key political player. We are a force for good. We are a constructive player and actor in multilateral relations. We want to preserve and strengthen the multilateral response to our global challenges. And that is why I think Europe also needs to be a strong player when it comes to foreign policy and international politics. And there our president in her speech also addressed many of the policy challenges, including our relations with China, with Russia, and our relationship with the United States of America. And I think among the points we need to think about is how can we become more effective? And moving to qualified majority voting in foreign policy is a method. It's not the objective in itself, but it's a method to become a better, faster, stronger international actor. So now I've tried to recap some of what I think the main points of the State of the Union: protection, stability, opportunity. This blended with recovery, solidarity, and unity, I think this will be the axis of EU communication for the months and years to come, all under the umbrella of Next Generation EU. You are the Next Generation EU. This story needs to be told by you, and I very much count on your support. And now I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 1, 2, yes. Thank you very much, Richard, for this keynote. We invite also our audience to think actively and reflect on the content, and also be courageous to ask questions to the keynote speaker. So you can do that by using the same Slido tool. So it's the same code, the same link, and also you can not only ask questions, but you can also upvote the questions that are given by others. And it's the same to our online audience. If you are willing to ask a question to our speaker, feel free to do that. So you just need to go to sly.do, and then enter the code K0930. And there you can write down your questions. Just checking if we do have any question already.
Yeah, we have one. In which direction is EU heading? Federation, confederation, or republic?
Richard, could you hear the question?
Yes, I could. There has been for many years a lot of talk about the United States of Europe. But I've been living in the United States of America, and there are things, I think, which will never make us like the USA. One is that I think we have still stronger also regional, local identities. We have our languages, and we have our European diversity. So I think the European Union is a very special animal. It's unique. There are others who are trying to get to a similar degree of integration as we have in Europe. There's an African Union, and there's ASEAN, and there's Mercosur. But none of them have managed to create what we have, which is extremely precious. We still have our member states. And it's important to have them because, of course, there you can have a lot of policy responses for the needs of your national societies. But we have created a common European Union on top of it, a supranational animal, which helps the member states to deliver on many of the challenges which are now so big that none of them could address them alone. Not Lithuania, not Austria, not Germany, not France. So I think the Union is continuing to grow and become an ever closer Union. I think the needs out there require the Union to address issues which in the past have not been addressed at the European scale. One discussion is, as I mentioned, health. The idea of a European Health Union actually was already for the first time ventured in the 1950s. It was then shut down at the debate, but I think the virus now shows that also on health policy, we need a European response, as we need a European response on global affairs, on digitalization, on greening. So the European Union will grow stronger and stronger together, but not against its member states, not giving up on our identities. I think the beauty of Europe is that we can preserve our diversity and make our diversity a strength. Different member states, different regions, different parts of our society have something to add to the European project. And I think it's the challenge and the responsibility and the preeminent task of the European Union to bring together this diversity and these different strengths which we have.
All right, thanks a lot. We do have now actually more and more questions coming up, and these questions being upvoted. Everyone can see them also in your Slido screen. And at the moment we have another more upvoted question, which is, as we wait for the political agreement on the conference of the future of Europe, what could we do as communicators on the ground to be better prepared for that? What would be your advice?
I think we will be able in the next couple of weeks or latest months that we really launch the conference. So we are now negotiating between the institutions, the Council, the European Parliament and the Commission, a so-called joint declaration, which will be then the basis for this conference. But then the conference should not take place among the Brussels bubble and sort of the elites, if you like, of the institutions. The conference should go very much locally to the people, to all the different regions, not just to the national capitals, but also beyond. And that's where you will have a great role, on the one hand, in helping us organize activities and events. I think we will count a lot on people organizing locally discussion events around the big topics which Europe is facing these days, but also help us in the online discussion. We will come up with an online platform where people can then also contribute from all corners of Europe to a pan-European debate which crosses the borders. There is, of course, a translation issue, which we will also look into, but I would very much like that Lithuanians are not only discussing with Lithuanians about the future of Europe, which is great, but I would like you to also discuss with Portuguese and Greeks and Irish about the future of Europe and exchange and learn also and teach also in this exchange with others.
Thanks a lot for invitation to cooperate and actually look for kind of common ideas, not to look at a single kind of country future, but actually think more on the pan-European level in a way. We do have another more upvoted question at the moment, and that's linked to the Next Generation EU. So someone asked what are the main communication and outreach opportunities related to Next Generation EU?
Next Generation EU is huge. And it's not just huge because of the quantity of money which we can create, but for the first time with this amount of money, we not only have the vision where we want Europe to develop, and I spoke to you about the green and the digital and the resilient transformation of our economy and society. We also have the policies, Horizon 2020, Erasmus, our regional policy, many other instruments which we can deploy. We now also have the money to really make a big difference. And what we need is a national co-ownership of the project together with the European Union. Of course, only in Lithuania you will know best what are the big projects which you want to invest in. And as European Commission, we will be there to help you to identify the right projects and to help you get the money to where it is needed. But the communication challenge and opportunity, from my point of view, is that you make sure in the debate in Lithuania that when we invest in these projects, that it is not just a Lithuanian project, but it is a European project. And that's why giving visibility to the European dimension of Next Generation EU in every single project which is supported with this new program will be essential. And I very much hope that you will manage, together with all the national authorities, to really give Europe the proper visibility in making sure that wherever we have European money, technical advice and other support, which makes you realize important projects, big or small, that people also know that there is Europe in it and Europe on it.
Thanks a lot. And as you invited people actually to start already thinking and considering and putting ideas together how they can communicate things on the ground, now we switch attention from you to the audience here. And we do have a couple of questions for you to reflect and talk to colleagues around the tables. And Richard, I will also tell that in Lithuanian language as well. So that for the next roughly 10 minutes, there will be a moment for people to actually talk about the two questions. So if we could stream them on the screen, that would be helpful. Aš persijungsiu lietuvių kalbą. Mes dabar turime porą klausimų aptarimui būtent prie stalų, kur sėdite. Tai iš tikrųjų gera proga pasidalinti, kaip jūs matote dalykus, tuo pačiu ir šiek tiek susipažinti vieni su kitais, kurie sėdi prie to paties stalo. Tai turime porą klausimų. Buvo pristatyta Europos vizija ir planai. Klausimas jums, kokių turite idėjų, kaip būtų galima pristatyti Europos viziją ir tokią visą idėją platesniai visuomeniai ir kaip sudominti būtent tomis temomis, kokie iššūkiai iš to kyla, ar ne? Tai tokiai pradiniai diskusijai aplink stalus kviestumėm pasikalbėti apie tai, kaip tą žinią atnešti į visuomenę. Ir galite pakalbėti apie tikslinės grupės, kuriam komunikuojat ir kokių idėjų turit, arba galbūt jau gerųjų praktikų tam tikrų. Tai skirkime dabar 10 minučių tam. So Richard will just give some minutes now for people to work in smaller groups around the tables to reflect on these couple of questions, how to communicate and how to kind of make society interested in these topics. Ar būtų žmonių, kurie norėtų pasidalinti bent kokią vieną idėją? Ar būtų norinčių pasidalinti, kaip sudominti visuomenę šią Europos viziją? Taip, turime. Gal kas su mikrofonu gali tada prieiti? Ten? Ar angliškai galėtumėt pasakyti ar išversti? Gerai, pasakykit lietuviškai, aš tada pasitengsiu išversti. Richard, I asked if people have something to share to these questions. We have one person willing to answer and I'll translate from Lithuanian to English.
Pirmiausia, vis tik prieš kalbant apie sudominimą, reikia turėti galvoje, kad pakankamai mažai Lietuvoje kalbama apie Europos Sąjungą. Ypač mažai informacijos yra iš europarlamentarų. Aš nekalbu apie Vilnių, apie Kauną. Čia, kurie gyvena, jie žino, kur nueit, kur pažiūrėti, kur paklausyti. Jūs pasižiūrėkite į rajonų savivaldybių internetinius puslapius. Nei vienam nėra skyriaus skirto Europos Sąjungai, europiniam reikalam. Yra vietiniai reikalai. Aišku, vietiniai reikalai svarbus, bet pirmas dalykas, kad žmonės susidomėtų turbūt informacija. Kiek aš bandžiau kalbinti pagyvenusius žmonės, jie pripratę kalbėti apie savo reikalus, jiems čia gatvėje neišgirsta dar kažkas, o kas ten Briuselį darosi, daugelis iš vis nežino, gal ne visai nežino, per grubiai pasakysiu, bet jie ten kažką daro, kažką mūsų ministrai važinėja, ką ten veikia, kas ten vyksta, ir aplamai, kur mes esam, kas ta Europos Sąjunga. Per mažai, labai per mažai informacijos turi žmonės. Kai jie žinotų, kas padaryta iš Europos Sąjungos iniciatyvos pusės, kas iš mūsų, kaip tai vyksta, tada ir susidomėjimas būtų didesnis. Ačiū.
Okay, I'll try to recap a person saying that what is very much important is to go beyond big cities, to go to small villages, to municipal level, to actually show the link between what European Union does and the reality, the simple daily reality of people living there, so that they would understand what is the link, what is the support, how the budget is used, so that information is happening on really kind of small towns and municipal level, and that it would reach as many people as possible. And
very good.
We're almost about the time to finish, so Richard, maybe if anything still from your side before the break?
Yeah, I think, you know, what colleague just said hits it very much. And I fully agree with that. I've been working now for many years, first in Austria, now in Germany for the last couple of years. And I always try to do exactly what you are saying, go local and make visible what Europe does in your immediate surrounding. Because if you want to reach people, it's not the big numbers and the big policies. I mean, like Next Generation EU, 750 billion euros. That's so much money. Of course, it's important to tell people that we have the firepower to really address the crisis with this amount of money. But what triggers emotionally often more is if you can find examples in their immediate neighborhood or among people they know. So not just projects on a local level, which have EU funding, if it's, a company or if it's a farm or if it's a university or a school or another project which adds quality to the life, but also people, the Erasmus students who come back from their stay in Sweden and the experiences they have made. Entrepreneurs who now can export what they are producing to other countries in Europe. So these real stories are important. And something I'm proud of, in Austria, I have helped to create a network of communal councillors, so local politicians in small towns, in villages, or in bigger towns, who get a special responsibility for Europe. Not just, for sports and youth and what have you, what is important, of course, in local politics, but for Europe. And we have connected them to the European project by involving them, by informing them, so that they could also come on a Sunday to their, favorite place after church, if they go, or in the village, and tell people stories about Europe. And we can help them with that. So I just wanted to say, I'm very grateful for what you're doing. I fully share that it is important to go local, tell local stories, and help us also tell these local stories, because that is what often convinces people emotionally more than the big numbers and the big policies.
Thank you very much for staying with us and giving us the first keynote in this conference. Big applause.